Hi, welcome back to Grains in Small Places. I'm Kara, and today I'm going to be showing you 2 Christmas cookies, and they're great for the holidays. The first one is a peanut butter dark chocolate kiss cookie made with spelt flour, and the second one is a sugar cutout cookie, and it's actually a 4-generation cookie for my family. So come along and I'll show you how we do this. The first cookies that we're going to make are actually going to be the cutout cookies. Okay, first I'm going to mill the flour. So I'm going to measure out about 2 cups of soft white wheat and mill that, and it should give me about 3.5 cups of flour. And if you've noticed over here, this is our dinner. We're making some shredded chicken flautas, and we love to make these. They're just a quick and easy dinner for our family. I'll show you what we do for those, and I'll put the recipe in the description for them as well. And what I'm going to do is add the salt and baking powder to the flour. I always try to find this baking powder. It's the kind without the aluminum in it. I just find that it's better for our family. I'm going to grab my metal bowl and my cookie paddle and put those in my mixer. Sad news, my mixer, I've been told from the manufacturer, is being discontinued. There were a few left on Amazon. I'll put that link below, but once they're gone, they're gone. So to my bowl, I'm going to go ahead and add a 1/2 cup of coconut oil and a 1/2 cup of softened butter. You could use all coconut oil or all softened butter. I prefer to do half and half because 100% coconut oil is all fat, so it will make a crispier cookie, but it also will hold its shape better. And if I used all butter, it would give me a softer cookie, but it doesn't quite hold the shape as well. So I really like to use half and half, but that's up to you, to the desired results that you like. So I'm going to go ahead and beat those together until they're kind of cohesive in one. And then to that, I'm going to add 1.5 cups of sugar. I'm going to make the dough because it has to sit in the refrigerator for at least 2 hours. And then we can get started on the peanut butter kiss cookies while those are in the refrigerator. And then 2 eggs, 1 at a time. And a teaspoon of vanilla, and I love to make my own homemade vanilla. I will put a link up here and down below so you can check that out. A teaspoon of lemon juice. We're going to mix all that up till it gets all incorporated, and then we'll add the flour mixture. And you'll have to scrape the sides down a couple times just to make sure that all of the ingredients get incorporated properly. This recipe is actually a 4-generation recipe. It's kind of passed down from my mom, my grandma, her mother, and I will of course pass it down to my kids. The only difference that I made is the original recipe calls for shortening. I really don't like to use shortening. I don't have any, so I opted for the butter and the coconut oil instead. And then if it looks a little thick, you can use up to 2 tablespoons of milk as needed. Okay, so for the sugar cutout cookies, I'm going to go ahead and put that in a ball on some saran wrap or cling films. That way I can put it in the refrigerator for at least 2 hours, if not overnight. It just makes for easier rolling out, and it also makes for better cutout shapes. So while that dough's in the refrigerator, I'm going to go ahead and get started on my second cookie dough. So I'm going to mill the flour for the peanut butter kiss cookies, and I'm going to mill about 1 2/3 cup of spelt, and this is going to give me about 2.5 cups of fresh milled spelt flour. And I'm just going to go ahead and use the same bowl, the same spatula and everything. That way I don't have to get anything else dirty. If you've never tried spelt, it is really delicious in cookies and muffins. It has almost a nutty flavor to it. We love using it in a lot of the pastries and baked goods that we make. I used 1 cup of butter, and I made sure it was softened at room temperature. A lot of times when I go to make cookies and I know I'm going to be baking the next day, sometimes I'll just pull it out of the refrigerator the night before. That way I know I'm going to have nice softened butter. I'm going to add a cup of peanut butter. And then I'll add 3/4 cup of brown sugar and 3/4 cup of sugar. And I'm going to cream all that together for about 2 to 3 minutes until there's not really any sugar crystals showing. I will have all 3 of these recipes Down in the description box below, there are printable recipe links on my blog. So you can just go right there and print them off and make them to your heart's content. And I'm just going to scrape the sides on this cookie dough as well. It just makes for better mixing. I'll also put a link below in the description to my mill. I've had a lot of people asking about that and some of the other things that I'm using in my videos. And I'm going to add 2 eggs one at a time and just kind of mix it in between each one. And then a tablespoon of that homemade vanilla. And to my flour, I'm going to go ahead and add 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to mix that around. And I'm going to go ahead and put all the flour into the sugar mixture and mix that until it's all incorporated and no dry flour is showing. Okay, and there's no need to refrigerate this cookie dough. It does pretty well baking it right away. I'm going to get my cookie scoop out. This is my favorite cookie scoop. I love that I bought it because I always made cookies without it. I never admitted that I actually needed one until I tried it, and now I never want to make them without it. So I'm just going to scrape the sides down and we're going to scoop a whole tray. The first tray that I'm going to make, I'm actually going to put in the freezer. I love having cookies in the freezer. All different kinds of cookies. They freeze so well in the dough state. And that way you can get just a few out and bake them whatever flavor you want and even mix and match. So I'm going to just put them really closely on the lined baking sheet here. And then I'm going to flash freeze those for about 2 to 3 hours. And then I'll show you what I do with those. That way I have cookies always in my freezer. And on this tray, I'm going to go ahead and make cookies to go ahead and bake right away. So I want to make sure they're about 2 inches apart from each other when I'm actually going to bake them, because they do spread just a little bit as they bake. And these are going to bake at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 8 to 10 minutes. Don't overbake them because then they'll get crispy. Unless you want them crispy, of course. And then I like to use these dark chocolate kisses. You can use any flavor that you want. And I'm going to go ahead and unwrap them now so that way they're ready to go right when the cookies come out of the oven, because you want to put them on when they're still warm. All right, and these cookies are done. I'm going to grab them out and we're going to just place a kiss on the top of each cookie and just give it a little press. You don't want to press it all the way down to the baking sheet, but just a little press and it will start to melt in there. And then I just let them sit on the tray for about 5 minutes, and then I will take them off the tray and put them on a cooling rack to finish cooling the rest of the way. And I'm going to repeat to make another batch of baked cookies, and we'll repeat and do the same thing with the kisses. I think some people call these actually peanut butter blossom cookies, but whatever you want to call them, my family loves these. Okay, and then the ones that are flash frozen, I just kind of reuse this bag over and over. This used to have a different kind of cookie in it, so I'm going to just change what I need it to. So I'm going to put on there 8 to 10 minutes of baking time at 350 degrees. It's going to be a little lower from the freezing, and I'm just going to write peanut butter cookies so we know what kind they are. And then I'll just grab the tray out and we'll put these in the bag. I'll keep them in the freezer, and that way whenever we want some, we can bake some. I love to make extra cookies all the time because you never know when you have a hankering for a cookie. And while we're waiting for the other cookies, I just wanted to show you our cute little Grinch tree. And here is where we're at for dinner. So the flautas, we just shred the chicken, we add some cheese, a little bit of cream cheese, and then we roll those up into soft tortillas, put them in our little air fryer. Our little oven has an air fryer feature. Put them on the baskets, and then we bake those off so they're brown and crispy. I will put the recipe for this one in the link below also. I love to serve these flautas alongside some fresh guacamole. Okay, so our dough is ready to be rolled out, and I love this little special thickness guide rolling pin. I'm just going to take the dough, and Matt's going to cut it up for me. And every time I get the dough out of the refrigerator, it's just a little bit hard for me. I do have problems with my wrists, so he always has to get it started for me. Okay, so I'm just going to use this special rolling pin, make sure that I flour the surface so nothing sticks, and roll that out. And I'm going to make it about a 1/4 inch thick, but the rolling pin helps to make sure that everything is even. That way my cookies do not bake unevenly. And I'm going to use this little biscuit cutter. I don't have a lot of space for a lot of cookie cutters. In the past, I've borrowed some from friends and family, but we're just going to go with little circles and just keep this rustic and simple. I'm not an expert cookie decorator, as you'll see here in a little bit. If the dough rips apart on a little bit, it's okay. Just kind of press it back together. I probably could have used just a little bit more milk in here. I really only put half of a tablespoon. I should have put just a little bit more in there, but that's why the recipe calls for up to 2 tablespoons. After they're cut out to the shape that you desire, go ahead and put them on a lined baking sheet, and then we're going to bake those for 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 8 minutes. You don't really want these to brown. We like a soft cookie, so if you bake them any longer, they probably will be very crispy. Unless you like a crispy cutout cookie, that's fine, but if you like that soft, like, I don't know, loft house style or just a softer style cookie, you want to make sure you pull it out at the 8 minutes or even before, depending on your oven. Okay, so after the cookies are done baking, I will go ahead and let them sit on the tray for a couple minutes, then put them on a wire rack to cool. And then after they're completely cool, we can go ahead and start with the icing. For the icing, I have a stick of softened butter. This icing recipe won't make enough probably for all of the cookies, so you could double it. But I melt that butter. My grandmother taught me that if I start with melted butter, the icing will actually firm up better for me. And if I start with like a softened or a harder butter, then the icing will stay soft. So it is to your preference, but I like it to start to harden just a little bit so that they're easy to store. I'm going to go ahead and add a splash of vanilla in here just for some flavoring. And then I'm also going to add 2 to 3 tablespoons of milk or so. And then about 2 to 3 cups of powdered sugar. For the recipe, I will go ahead and type it up so that it is doubled already. That way you have enough for all the cookies. But in all honesty, I kind of measure with my heart here. I always just a little bit of powdered sugar, a little bit of milk, just until I get the consistency and texture that I'm looking for. And once I have what I'm looking for, then I stop there. So I really don't ever measure this part of it, but that's about how much I use. And looks like it's empty, so good thing I have another bag. I just refilled it real quick and gonna go ahead and add some more. Haley is much better at artistic and decorations than I am. I should have let her do the decorating part. I'm just going back and forth with, like I was saying, with the powdered sugar and milk until I get the texture and the flavor how I like it. And I like to kind of spread these with a knife just because I'm going for that rustic, homemade. It reminds me more of how my grandma used to make them and how I used to make them when I was a kid with my mom and my siblings. It just gives me a little taste of home back in Ohio when I am out and about traveling and not around my family right now. Shout out to my family. We love you guys. Alrighty, this is the texture I'm looking for, and I have some red sprinkles and some silver sprinkles and some green sprinkles. These are our favorite kind of sprinkles. It's just that colored sugar. There are tons of other options that we could have used, but like I said, I'm going for kind of a more rustic, simple decorating technique, if you want to call it a technique. And there was a whole nother batch of uniced cookies, so we went ahead and made more of the icing or frosting, whatever you want to call it, and we went ahead and took some over to our friends that are staying at the same park as we are. Thank you so much for joining me in my kitchen today as we made these 2 cute little Christmas cookies. And I hope you enjoyed what you liked. Please give me a like and maybe subscribe. That way you won't miss any content that I'm putting out next. Don't forget to check out my blog at grainsinsmallplaces.net where you can find all of these recipes and more. So until next time, thanks for stopping by Grains and Small Places. Goodbye. Oh, I just spilled sprinkles all over the ground.